Welcome back to our story today. I am so truly happy to see you again. Please, find a comfortable place to sit and relax. Perhaps a cozy armchair, or maybe you are lying back with your eyes closed, letting the day's worries drift away. Imagine, once more, that we are sitting together by our warm, glowing campfire. The night is vast and silent around us. The wood is dry and seasoned, crackling softly as the orange flames lick the air, sending tiny, dancing sparks up toward the velvet sky. Above us, the stars are bright and countless, the same stars that for thousands of years looked down on a humanity that could only dream of reaching them. Tonight, here at Story Path English, I want to tell you a story about a dream, but it was not just any dream. It was a dream that was considered impossible by the greatest scientists, the richest kings, and the smartest thinkers of the time. It is the story of two brothers who didn't have much money, who never went to college, and who spent their days covered in grease and dust in a small bicycle shop. Yet, these two brothers did what no one else in human history had ever done. They looked at the birds, they studied the wind, and they decided that humans belonged in the sky. This is the story of Wilbur and Orville Wright and the 12 seconds that changed the world forever. To understand this story, we have to travel back to a small, quiet town called Dayton, Ohio, in the late 1800s. Imagine a world where the fastest way to travel was by steam train or a horse-drawn carriage. The sky was a place of mystery, belonging only to the birds and the clouds. In this town lived two brothers. Wilbur was the older one, quiet, serious, and a deep thinker. Orville was the younger one, creative, energetic, and always full of new ideas. They were more than just brothers. They were a team. They often said they thought together, and they never made a move without the other. The dream of flight actually began with a toy. When they were just children, their father brought home a small helicopter made of bamboo, cork, and paper, powered by a rubber band. The boys played with it until it broke, and then, instead of crying, they did something that would define their lives. They built a better one. That little toy planted a seed in their minds. It made them wonder, if a toy can fly, why can't a man? Have you ever had a small curiosity as a child that stayed with you your whole life? That curiosity was the engine that drove the Wright brothers. As they grew up, they opened a bicycle shop. This is a very important part of the secret of their success. In those days, other people were trying to build flying machines that were like giant, heavy steamships for the air. They thought the secret to flight was just a big, powerful engine. But the Wrights, because they worked with bicycles, understood something much more important: balance. Think about riding a bicycle. It is a constant, delicate act of balance. You are not just sitting still, you are leaning, moving your weight, and controlling the machine. The Wrights realized that a flying machine shouldn't be a heavy box. It should be like a bird. They spent hours sitting by the river, watching buzzards and hawks. They noticed how a bird twists the tips of its wings to turn in the wind. They called this wing warping. They realized that to fly, a human had to learn how to ride the air, just like they rode a bicycle on the street. In the year 1900, they decided to test their ideas. They needed a place with two things: strong, steady winds and soft sand to land on when they inevitably crashed. They wrote to the National Weather Bureau and found a lonely, wind-swept place on the coast of North Carolina called Kitty Hawk. Imagine the scene at Kitty Hawk. It was a place of endless sand dunes and crashing waves. There were no hotels, no electricity, and no comforts. The brothers lived in a simple wooden shack. They were bitten by thousands of mosquitoes. They were cold, they were tired, and they were often frustrated. For 3 long years, they traveled back and forth from Ohio to Kitty Hawk. They built gliders that failed. They built a wind tunnel in their bicycle shop to test different wing shapes, because the scientific books of the time were wrong. They were teaching themselves a science that didn't exist yet. Have you ever worked on a project where everything seemed to go wrong? Many times, the wind broke their machines into pieces. Many times, they fell into the sand and felt the sting of defeat. Wilbur once said in a moment of sadness, "Man will not fly for 50 years. He was tired. He was losing hope, but he didn't stop. Orville wouldn't let him. They were 2 parts of one soul, always pushing each other forward. Finally, in 1903, they built a new machine. They called it the Flyer. It was made of spruce wood and giant pieces of muslin cloth. It had a small, vibrating engine that they had to build themselves because no car company would sell them one light enough. They even had to design the propellers from scratch, realizing that a propeller is really just a wing that spins. On the morning of the 17th of December, 1903, the wind was biting and cold. The sand was freezing. Only 5 local people came to watch. They didn't think they were about to see history. They just thought the 2 crazy bicycle men were going to try their machine again. Orville climbed into the machine. He lay flat on his stomach on the lower wing. He started the engine. The whole machine shook and rattled. Wilbur stood at the side, holding the wing to keep it steady. The machine started to move along a wooden track. It moved faster and faster, and then something miraculous happened. The Flyer lifted off the ground. For 12 seconds, Orville Wright was no longer a man of the earth. He was a man of the sky. He flew for 120 feet, not very far, shorter than the wings of a modern airplane, but it was the first time in human history that a machine had taken a man into the air under its own power. They did it. 2 bicycle mechanics from Ohio had conquered the sky. But the story doesn't end there. The strangest thing happened next. Nobody believed them. When they sent a telegram home to their father, the local newspapers didn't even want to print the story. People were so sure that flight was impossible that they refused to believe it had happened. For several years, the Wrights continued to fly in a field near their home in Ohio, while people on passing trains looked out the window and didn't realize they were seeing the greatest invention of the century. It wasn't until Wilbur went to France in 1908 and performed a flight in front of thousands of people that the world finally woke up. When the people saw Wilbur gliding gracefully through the air, making perfect turns and circles, the cheering was so loud it could be heard miles away. The impossible was now a reality. The legacy of the Wright brothers is not just about airplanes. It is a story about the power of the human spirit. They showed us that you don't need a lot of money, a famous name, or a fancy degree to change the world. You need a dream. You need a partner who believes in you. And you need the courage to keep building when your machines are breaking in the sand. Think about this. Only 66 years after those 12 seconds at Kitty Hawk, another man stepped onto the moon. In less than a human lifetime, we went from the sand dunes of North Carolina to the craters of the moon. And in the pocket of the astronaut Neil Armstrong, there was a small piece of wood and a bit of fabric from the original 1903 Wright Flyer. The brothers' dream had traveled all the way to the stars. As our campfire burns low and the logs turn to glowing red embers, let us think about the impossible dreams in our own lives. What is your kitty hawk? What is the thing people tell you can't be done? The story of Wilbur and Orville reminds us that the sky is not the limit, it is only the beginning. It reminds us that balance, persistence, and the willingness to learn from failure are the wings that will carry us wherever we want to go. History is often told through the lives of kings and conquerors, but at StoryPath English, we believe the most powerful stories are about ordinary people who do extraordinary things. The Wright brothers were ordinary men who refused to be held down by the gravity of no. They gave us the gift of the clouds. Thank you for sitting with me tonight by the fire. Thank you for traveling back to the cold, windy sands of 1903 with me. I hope this story stays in your heart, reminding you to look up at the sky and remember that within you there is a dream waiting to take flight. The fire is almost out now, and the night is deep and quiet. Close your eyes and imagine the sound of a small engine humming in the wind and the feeling of the ground falling away beneath you. The stars are still there, watching over us, just as they watched over the two brothers in their wooden shack. May you find your own balance. May your spirit be light and free. And may you always have the courage to reach for the impossible. Sleep well, my friends, and I will see you on our next journey down the story path. Good night.